Welcome back to another episode of The Final Approach. It is episode 47, and this is probably going to be entitled The End of the Beginning, because, well, we're going to tie up some loose ends and finish off things in the Kerbal system, and then we're going to be going out to the other planets. So you see here, I'm actually just going to complete a mission we took a while ago, which was to put a flag onto the Moon and also to get some science off it. And we're just sending down the crew from the Moon lab, actually. They've got their lander there. We fueled it up from there. And it's going to go down and just land for us into that big crater, which I don't think we've been in before. So we get a bit of extra science from that. And we're just sending a scientist down because this craft has the ability to do that. And we just check a little bit of the EVA there, a little risky on our landing there. So yeah. This will be the last episode of The Final Approach in its current form, and we'll be moving on to, well, it is still going to be The Final Approach, but we're gonna sort of have sub-series, shall we say. So we're going to have, the next sub-series is going to be The Eve Approach, and it's going to be in the same universe, shall we say, in the same save as The Final Approach, but it's going to be focused on going to Eve. We're going to have some missions to Eve. I'm going to try and keep their runtime time down between 15 and 20 minutes, do quite a bit of voiceover for it. Each episode will be a different mission to Eve and things like that, and I'm actually going to do them in batches, so they'll actually be in launch windows, and I'll explain that when it's going on. But on the screen now, we are coming down for what I think is one of my nicest landings on the moon ever, and I couldn't actually believe it. I was doing this and I wasn't speaking while I was doing it. I was just getting it done. And I think it does show just how commenting or commentating on what you're doing at the same time as doing it sometimes impacts your ability to do it. So we came down, we did a really nice landing, just slowed it down beautifully. You can see the scientist on board is a little bit stressed about this, but I don't know why. We just missed a rock there, which I'm not sure if you can hit or not. I'd have to check that. I think you can now hit them. And then it's just a case of getting out and doing what we need to do. So that's going to happen. The scientist's going to jump out. We check that everything's okay around the craft, and yeah, we're sorted. He jumps out, comes along, and of course plants his flag. Now I've sped this up a little bit. This is, I think, 3 times speed, so it goes a little bit quicker. So we're going to get not just the Mun mission in today. We have a few other little things I want to achieve before we move towards it. Stop worrying. I don't know why he's flapping his hands there. That's crazy. So yeah. He's going to jump back into the pod, and then we're pretty much ready to go. He collects a bit of science, does all the stuff he needs to do. We've got the flag on the surface, we've got all this stuff done. One of the things I did identify during this was these little pods that I use for going up and down to the moons have antenna on them, which I had not realised in 1 or 2 of my previous episodes. So it was causing massive issues because they weren't set to allow partial transmission. And so for some reason, when transmitting data, they were being preferred to all the other antenna on the space stations, and as such, it was causing us problems with sending our science data back. And so, ironically, yeah, that's an ongoing problem with science data, which I will try and make sure does not happen in the future missions when we go to other planets. So we'll see. So anyway, we take off, and again, we're all completely orientated. We leave those antennae out, and it looks a bit like elephant ears. I can't help but think of them as little ears, and although one of them's facing the other way, I should really have put them on mirror, and then they would have both faced the same way, and it looked at least reasonably nice. And so this craft actually does really well. It's got plenty of delta V, plenty of fuel when fully loaded to get down to the surface and back up again. It's actually a really nice design. I think it's probably one I will try and shall we say acquire for future missions. I think particularly if we're going to go places like small moons like Gilly and places like that, I think this would probably be a good idea to check it out. I'm not sure on some of the bigger things, but I could imagine Gilly, this would probably be overpowered actually. I might need to put smaller engines on it. I have to think about that, but we can adapt it as time goes on. So yeah, we do our circularization burn as we get to our wrap-ups there, do a little bit of refining, and then it's just a case of docking. And as with this mission all the way through, it is one of the cleanest, nicest missions I have ever done. I actually wish that I was doing live commentary over top of it, because you would probably hear me completely shocked and awed. So yeah, we're just going to do our rendezvous now. And yeah, I know I keep sort of saying this in this episode, but it was very much sort of, everything that could go right did go right, which is a little concerning when you're about to start a new series going to Eve, because it means you might have just used all your Kerbal lookup. Is that even a term? I don't know. So yeah, we just get our orbital sort of rendezvous arranged, and we're just doing a little bit of sort of checking out our prograde, retrograde, and a bit of this and that. Because we actually landed equatorially, and we came from an equatorial station that we're going to go back to, and the station is very much equatorial. I think it's only about 0.1 degrees off equatorial. This was a pretty easy rendezvous because the planes were pretty much matched. Normally when I take off from the surface, I get a bit all over the place, and I can throw out my my inclination a little bit because of that. But this one, it was actually a really nice little burn. You can see we're doing a slight inclination change, but you know, it's very minor. It's very minor for what we're doing. And there we go, just sort that up. And then looking on the bottom left-hand corner, making sure that my distances sort of match up. A little bit of RCS to refine the approach because I want to get nice and close. And I know that the thrust on this lander craft when in orbit is actually enough to stop it quite quickly relative to the station. We don't have a lot of speed difference going on or velocity difference going on at the moment, so that's not a big issue. So we just speed up towards the station. And yeah, now normally, of course, this would be a one-episode job. We've gone down to the surface of a moon, we've got some science, we've come up to the station, and we're going to dock, and then that would be it done. But this episode is not going to end here. We've got a few other little things that I want to achieve. We've also got some stuff that we set off a while ago that we need to actually look at, and that's pretty much what the rest of this episode is about, because while we're coming to dock, we have the Sentinel that the Sentinel, I think we actually called it, was it Sweet Potato? I can't remember the name now. I'm not sure I'm going to name things after vegetables and fruits in future because it doesn't help. So we've got that's coming up, and we've also got our mission to Duna. Now I have actually removed the dual mission. I've deleted the craft, primarily because it was going to be a problem in the middle of the Eve series, and also because it didn't have signal, and I could have sent some stuff up to try and act as relays, but we just avoided it. So anyway, yeah, we're up now, and we're looking at the Sentinel, the Sweet Potato, in orbit, and it is actually coming up to its I think it's its periaps because we're dropping its orbit, so it's coming up to its maneuver node that we've been waiting, I think, a year or so for now. And there we go, we're using the new controls there, so we can actually set up alarms and things like that. And one thing I will say is I'm going to force myself with the Eve series and actually all future series, because this is a stock playthrough. I know I could actually calculate things in my head and stuff like that, but I want to try and use the built-in sort of things as much as possible. I want to use the built-in sort of alarm clock and things as much as possible, primarily to get myself used to it, but also because, you know, it's things you can do as well when you're watching and playing along. So there we go. We just we circularized that orbit, and now it should be in pretty much the correct orbit. We need to check everything. We're just gonna. I was gonna put it on the normal, and then I thought that's a bit silly because our antenna is on the it's on the top, and so I rotated it round so our solar panels are facing the sun, or Kerbal, I believe it is called still, and then we're just going to leave it like that. Now, of course, because of the way Kerbal works, there isn't persistent rotation. I can't fix it to always face sort of inwards. Although if I could set it, if we had a better probe core, to always recenter itself to face it towards the side like that. But I do not, and as such, we'll just leave it as it is. It'll just sit there. It'll do our collection of stuff. And then we are going to go back to Kerbin orbit, because with us going to Eve and other planets, we're going to need some crew. Now, I'm going to leave the two scientists on our two other stations, on the Minmus lab, or Min lab, and Mun lab, primarily because I need to get science off them. I have calculated I need about 8,000 science to finish the tech tree. And with our first set of flights to Eve, I'm going to get a big chunk of science, but oh, there we go, just decouple that. We're going to get a big chunk of science, but I need to, I want to finish it off before we get to our second sort of tranche of flights there. So we're going to bring these guys out of orbit. We've got, is it Billabong on there? I can't remember which one it is. And we've got, I think, Tritzers on board and stuff. So we've got two scientists and a pilot, and they're going to be potentially useful for us. They've been in orbit for a while. There's very little research left to do in Orblab 1. I'm leaving it up because it's a big structure, but we may end up deorbiting it at some point. But we will see. Maybe we might use parts of it. And then we come on to the final part of this episode. And yeah, this is the bit that you may have forgot about. This is Grip 1, and so we're going to Duna. Now, I was tempted to actually to cancel this mission, to actually terminate this mission. If the signal that it was getting had been a bit sort of, shall we say, dodgy, I would definitely have ended it, but so that we could actually start afresh with all of our missions going to Duna. However, I thought, you know what, let's leave this one. Let's actually, this is Duna. We're going to do some stuff around Duna, but it's going to be not for a while, because we've got Eve to deal with first. So yeah, Duna's going to be give us a little bit of science. So we've got a little intercept because of the way we set our orbital path up with Ike first, and Ike is a really big moon. So it's actually very easy to get that interaction with Ike and just fly past it at speed, which is quite nice. So there you go, there's Ike, and we're getting our science from it. One failure of this craft actually is a lack of power for transmitting science. And so we are actually trying to transmit science back, but because the craft doesn't have much in the way of batteries, and we're sending quite a lot of science back, it is using a big chunk of it up, and I have to be very careful with it. You know, temperature sensors aren't too bad, but some of the sensors we've got on there we go, the magnetometer is just using all of that electric up, and you can actually see it's running. We're actually going to get most of the way to Duna before Juna or Duna, I don't know which way you say it, before we actually get the science out of it, which is quite interesting actually. So there, we're going to come in, and this is a nice little practice on getting orbit around Duna. I'm not going to use an aero brake. It's one thing I've never actually, I don't think I've done one. I think in my Back to Basics series when we went to Duna and landed, I actually did a repulsive sort of circularization and capture burn. So yeah, I really should maybe when we come to Duna do some aero braking and just practice that. So there we go. We're gonna do our little impulsive retrograde burn and bring ourselves into some sort of orbit. And I actually decided to go polar, primarily because I overdid it. And then we're gonna reposition this craft. This one's gonna fire itself off and bring that up. So what I actually did was I didn't want to keep both the transfer stage and the on orbit stage in orbit, because I don't like rubbish. And so we put the craft so that it was going to head into the atmosphere, and then I actually used that probe on the top to bring itself back out to actually burn prograde and put itself in a nice route. So there we go. This is, however, our transfer stage. Now it I believe it's core a probe core in it somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. I need to check, and I'm not sure why I would put a probe core in it. But anyway, what I really wanted to do was actually have a look at what happened with the atmosphere of Duna, because I wanted to know if it would burn up, and also what sort of speeds we'd get. And this is me sort of being a little preemptive, because I don't tend to go to Duna much, and I'm not entirely sure why. I know it's the Mars analog and things like that, and people love a bit of Duna, but yeah, I just don't. I've not really done it. And the irony here is that given Duna's red appearance, I'm going to land on the pole, which is not red at all, which is really not great for video quality and things like that. But yeah, it's what you get, and you're going to get to see me landing in the snow of Duna. And I wonder whether I could build a little base in the snow, like a Santa's grotto. That's an idea for the future. So yeah, there we go. Firing on down and impacting, and that's it. That's the end of that part of the series. So I will be changing probably the release schedule. I think I'm probably going to have the final approach or its subsections coming out only on a Sunday. I haven't decided yet, and I might leave some more days off. But from me, until we head to Eve, have a great one.